Velkommen alle sammen. Welcome back to the series where we speak about the true meaning of the Norse gods and deities. Today we are speaking about Þrúðr, Thor's daughter, and as usual going over the translations, attestations, and theories. This one is pretty easy. I think you guys are going to figure it out before I even get to it, but anyway, here we go. Translation first. Very simple. Þrúðr, directly translated from Old Norse, means power, strength, energy. From much older Proto-Germanic Þrúðis, meaning the same thing. This word is also related to Proto-Germanic Þrájana, meaning to grow. All of these come from the ancient, very ancient Proto-Indo-European Þrevana, to grow, thrive, nourish. Hold on to that thought because it's very related and you'll see what I mean at the end of the video. So next on to the attestations. First is the oldest sources in the Poetic Edda. Þrúðr is not really mentioned in the Poetic Edda by name, but we think she comes up in the poem Alvismál, the story where the dwarf Alvis shows up and demands Thor's daughter for a marriage, and then they engage in their battle of wits, and Thor just stalls Alvis out until the sun comes up, and then Alvis is turned into stone. Þrúðr's name is not mentioned in this poem, but of course we think it's her because that is Thor's daughter. Another one in the Poetic Edda, this actually does mention Þrúðr's name in the poem Grimnismal in the descriptions of Valhalla, but here Þrúðr is just one of the Valkyries that served mead to Odin's warriors in Valhalla, so this could be Þrúðr too, but not sure. Is she a Valkyrie or is a Valkyrie also named Þrúðr? We don't know. Anyway, next sources, Þrúðr comes up in a couple of skaldic poems, but she's only listed in kennings really, not really going into any detail. One comes in the Ragnarsdropa, a poem about the legendary Ragnar Lothbrok. The giant Hrungnir is mentioned in this poem as the thief of Þrúðr. Another skaldic poem, Thor's Thor is mentioned as he who longs for Thrud. So we have a couple suggestions in all of these sources that Thrud was kidnapped from Thor, but no details in any of these sources. Final one, we'll go on to the Prose Edda. Just be aware that the Prose Edda was composed by a Christian author long after pagan times, and it's not 100% reliable. First, in the Skaldskaparmal section, it states that Thrud is the daughter of Thor and Sif, the earth goddess, and that's about it. She's not mentioned elsewhere, but we do have this story that we hear of the tale of Hrungnir and Thor, and that Hrungnir threatens to kill all the gods besides Freya and Sif and keep these ladies for himself. But then Thor comes out, whoops his ass. So Hrungnir is mentioned as one who kidnaps Thrud in other sources, but not in here. But yeah, she probably does. That was the original myth. Anyway, one more I'll say maybe. Thrud also comes up on the Karlevi runestone in Sweden. The chieftain here that this stone was raised for is referred to as the tree of Thrudr. So sometimes a word as simple as Thrudr, where we know directly what it is translated to, it's translated to energy, power, strength. We're not sure if these attestations refer to the goddess Thrudr or if they are simply referring to power and strength. But what I'm telling you guys, what I tell you guys all along in all my videos, is that there is no difference. The gods are not superhuman-like beings watching over us up in the sky. The gods are certain divine energies that are very real and all around us that science is not quite able to explain. That being said, on to the theories. You guys already know what Thrud is. You don't need me to tell you. What is Thor in the myths? You know, representing thunder, the electromagnetic field, protecting the earth, the hero, you know, even electricity, and most importantly in many of the myths, Thor represents the divine energy that is behind all life force in living things. It's more complicated than that. All of these kind of link up together. These are the theories that people have about Thor, but they're all kind of linked to the same thing. I'll make another video about Thor, but you get the idea for now what Thor is. Who is Thrud's mother? Sif, the earth goddess. not the earth as a whole, but more specifically land or soil. I've done videos explaining what Sif is, and this is also confirmed by the scholars. Sif we're pretty sure about. So, what does Þrúðr's name mean? Power, strength, energy, and in very ancient times it had to do with growth and nourishment. So you guys don't even need me for these. Þrúðr is the energy stored in the earth that gets transferred into plants and trees and things to make them grow. Not just plants, but all living things can make use of this divine energy that is in the ground, in the soil, this energy that we call Þrúðr. You guys know this. Modern science has proven some of this too, the electrons in the earth that we can transfer into ourselves by walking bare feet, grounding as it is called in modern times. This is Þrúðr. And we had rituals like this all over the world, but I'll go into that in another video, basically getting ground from the earth, but for now let's just try to explain some of these attestations. The story of Hrungnir, we are not quite sure what this giant Hrungnir represents, but some of the scholars have suggested that Hrungnir is some sort of very ancient natural disaster that threatened to wipe out all on earth besides Freyja and Sif, aka the earth, soil, seeds, and divine feminine creative forces in nature. Who knows, it could be a volcano eruption or comet. As to what Hrungnir represents, those things come to mind, but we just don't know for sure. It's just something that leaves Earth without Þrúðr, without these electrons or spiritual energy stored in the ground, and basically destroys everything besides soil. Next, we can talk about the poem Alvismal. What Alvis is, we're not sure about either. He's a dwarf. He's the wisest of all dwarves. His name literally means the wise one. And what the dwarves are in our myths are certain spiritual entities that have to do with birth, determining the traits, genetics, and the ancestral traits that will be born in this new human being, what will be passed on to this new baby that's about to be born, or any living thing for that matter. Anything that has a DNA and a birth, certain dwarves are involved in some way. There are many, many different dwarves, and dwarves are a long subject, but that's at least the general idea. Dwarves, we also absolutely believe to be some type of spirits that resided in stones, boulders, and mountains. This was the belief in the folk tradition all the way up until 100 or 200 years ago in Scandinavia. I think there's a ritual to be learned from somewhere here, where this all-wise dwarf, Alvis, wants Þrúðr as his wife. He comes out at night to try to drain some of this energy out of the earth, but then when the sun comes up, he must go back home to his abode in the stones and mountains. It makes kind of sense that Þrúðr is nourishing all plants and life when the sun comes up, and then it's on pause when it's dark out. That's why things grow all over in sunny times and don't grow at all in the winter. Maybe that's not 100% spot on according to modern science and photosynthesis, but it's what our ancestors would have perceived at the time. I don't know what this specific dwarf Alvis represents. If you guys have any thoughts about this myth, let me know. That's the whole reason I make these videos. I want to hear ideas from all of us. If we put all of our minds together, then we can figure out the lost meanings of these myths. Also, the dwarves and Alvis could have something to do with the video I just made earlier this week about the spirits of the dead being trapped in stones, and in their burial mounds and things like that, and removing the stone would be able to pass that spirit on to the next life that was about to be born. It's something there. I haven't really sat down and thought about it a lot, but it's worth some more looking into. That's about it. So then we have this last runestone that refers to this chieftain as the battle tree of Thrud. So this can be a kenning, simply meaning that a person was very powerful or strong, that this chieftain called Sibi was a battle-hardened sea warrior of the likes we have never seen. Interesting note, the way that the electrons pass through our body when we walk barefoot is the exact same way that they are passed into a tree or other plants. So it is possible that this chieftain Sibi was maybe one of the biggest practitioners of earthing, and that's how he came to be so powerful. We know this today, that modern science has confirmed that people who walk barefoot are healthier, happier, longer living, stronger, pound for pound at least, and can even grow bigger or taller than they otherwise would have. Now, this is not crazy me talking all this. There have been studies on all of this. Modern science knows the benefits of earthing, walking barefoot, and getting these electrons transferred into your body, but it doesn't exactly understand how it works. In ancient times, and in our beliefs, this is Þrúðr. Þrúðr is this energy that is passing into our body when we walk barefoot, and it's the energy passing into plants and all living things. Also, very cool, two of my favorite athletes are known for this, going barefoot. MMA champion Israel Adesanya is known to walk barefoot almost everywhere he goes. And wrestling world champion Kyle Dake also does this, and he even has a conductive system linked up to his bed, so he gets the electrons from the earth while he sleeps. So we can use this too, guys, and I always try to go barefoot as much as I can, and this is nothing new for the Norse world. We see these kinds of rituals all over the world, people drawing power, drawing energy from the electrons in the ground by walking barefoot. We don't really have any Norse sources that this ritual was done, but like I said, we have almost every primitive culture in the world did something similar to this, and this is an example of where we can learn from each other. The Norse probably did something like this too, it just was not written down anywhere. So that's about all for today. Very exciting. Thrud is one of my favorite deities because it's one that we can all make use of every single day just by going barefoot and doing some of these rituals that we can learn from other places in the world that I will speak about in other videos. But that's all for today. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any ideas, filling in the blanks. Vi ses nästa gång.